Hello, good day friend. Welcome to Useful Array Methods in JavaScript tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll discuss the most day-to-day used array methods in JavaScript. I already have a comprehensive array methods in JavaScript tutorial. You can check this with this link above. So let's start. So these are the array methods which is very heavily used in day-to-day operation. We'll cover today. So let's start. So we'll start with a method called concat. So concat concats two arrays and returns one single array. Also, I would like to check whether it modifies the original array or not. So you see, it concatenated two arrays and returned one single array, but it didn't modify the original array. The next method is every, which checks whether each of the elements, whether all the elements satisfies a condition or not. So if I check that if each of the elements are greater than 3 or not, clearly we can see that two of the elements are not, or three of the elements are not greater than 3. One is greater than 3, so hence it is false, because every element has to be greater than 3 for true to be returned. So if I make it 0, you will see that all the elements satisfies the condition and hence true is returned, and every doesn't modify the original array. Next we have filter. So what filter does? It filters the array and returns a new array where all the elements satisfies this condition. So if I would like to have a new array where all the elements are greater than 2, so you see 3 and 4 are greater than 2 out of this array, but also filter method doesn't modify the original array. Then another one is find method, which also similar to filter, but it returns only the first element which satisfies the condition. So if I write the same condition, so here 3 and 4 both satisfies this condition, but only 3 will be returned. Find returns the first element. Okay. Then you have another method called findIndex, which returns the index, that is the 2 here. Now one thing I would like to mention in here, so what will happen if none of the elements satisfies this condition? What will be returned? So you see, in that case undefined is returned. Now in case of find index, it would be -1. Okay. What will happen for filter? You see, this would return an empty array. Okay, so this is an important difference between filter and find index. Now next one is includes, which checks whether an element is part of this array or not. So 3 is part of this array, so that's why is an element of this array, so that's why true is returned. So if I mention something which is not part of this array, so false will be returned. There is one more important one, that is indexOf, where you pass the element and it will return the index of that element. So the index is 2. Okay, and if you pass something which is not part of that array, in that case it would be written -1. And next one is join, where it joins all the element. Okay, you can pass some separator. So I pass space, so they are joined. The space, you can also pass something like this. Yeah, so you see it, all the elements are joined accordingly. So if you don't pass anything, by default it would take commas like that. Okay, there is one more, is lastIndexOf, where if you pass an element and you want to see what the last index, so it would return the last index. Say you have something like this, where last index here is 4, so of the element 3, so 4 will be returned. You see 4 will be returned and it doesn't modify the original array. And there is another very important is map. What map does, map iterates over each of the elements of an array and it returns, let me reduce the, and it returns an array of same length with the modified values. So each of the element, so if I pass and say if I want to do this operation, you see this modified, even if you put some condition and if you don't return, so it will always return array of same length. Okay. There is one more is similar to map, that is for each, but for each doesn't return any value. It also iterates over each of the elements, but it doesn't return an array. It returns undefined, but you can do operation on that array. So if I do something like map, you see return is still undefined and it doesn't modify original array. Neither map also doesn't modify the original array, but I can do some operation here. You see 10, 20, 30, 40 all been printed, but the return value is always undefined. That's the difference between for each and map. Then come a very heavily used one, push. So with push you can push new element at the end of the array. You see this is 5 and it modifies the original array. You can enter multiple values like that and it returns the length. Okay, so push returns the length. There is similar to push, you have one thing called unshift. So push inserts at the end and unshifts unshift enter at the beginning. Okay, so if I do like this, you see it also returns the length, but it enters at the beginning. Now there is one more thing is called pop method, which takes out an element from the end of an array and returns it. So it took 4 and returned it and it modifies the original array. Okay, similar to pop there is called shift, which also takes out an element, but it takes out from the beginning of the array. It returns that element and modifies the original array, you see, like that. Okay, then comes the if you want to reverse the array, you can do that using a reverse method. It will turn the array in different altogether in different direction and it also modifies the original array. There is one more called reduce, which reduce, what it does, it reduces the array whatever operations you pass to it and it returns the reduced value. So it takes at least 2, there is accumulator and the each of the elements, and say I want to do the addition of all the elements and I want to get the summation. So we can do that like this. You see the summation of all these elements is 10. We can the reduce method also takes another argument, that is we can pass the starting value. Say if it is 5, so this summation, so it will start from 5, so 15 will be returned like that. Okay, reduce not only used for summation, but you can also do for some other operations as well. Then comes the two very important method called slice. What slice does, it takes out part of an array. It doesn't takes out, it takes and it returns that part of an array, but do not modify the original array. Say I want to take start from index 1 here, that 2, and want to take 2 and 3. So I will give 3 up to third index minus 1. So index 3 minus 1, that is this. So if I do this, you see it returned 2 and 3, but it didn't modify the original array. You can also do it like this. You can say minus 1, that means also the length minus 1 and not included the index. Okay, so 2, 3 as well. Like if I spread 5, 6, it would be till 5. Okay, like that, but it didn't modify the original array. That is the difference. There is another method called splice, and that's the difference between slice and splice. In splice, you start index and you mention the length. So if 1 and then if I mention 2, so 2 and 3 has been taken out, but it modified the original array. That is the difference. Splice is very heavily used to remove an element from an array. Say you want to remove 3 out of it, so you mention the index and you mentioned 1, then it would take out 3 out of it and keep the array like it will change the underlying array. Let me show you one more usage of splice. It not only takes out an array, but it also modifies the original array, inserts element into it. Now say I want to insert 0 in front of it. I can do at 0, don't delete any element, and I want to insert 0. So what it would do, you see 0 has been inserted. It modified the original array, though it returned an empty array. Like say I want to insert between 4 and 5, I want to insert say 7. So what I can do at so before 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So at third index, sorry, at fourth index, don't delete anything and insert 7. So if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, that is also another use case of splice. So that's how, that is the difference between slice and splice. There is another very cool method that is called sort. Actually it will sort the array. It is already sorted, so in that case if I put 7 here, you'll see the magic. So 7 has gone. Now you can sort it in increasing order, you can sort also in decreasing order. In that case it will take this first and second element, and then it would see what it is returned, whether it is greater than or less than. Okay, so that's how you can do it. And if you want to do in increasing order, you just that is the default one. Okay, there is one more, a sum. We checked every where in every method, sorry, not come but sum, in every method the method checks whether all the array elements have satisfied the condition or not, but for sum it will check whether some of the elements have satisfied the condition or not. So if I mention this e greater than 5, so 2 of the elements satisfied this, so it would return true. But if I mention something like 10, which none of them satisfied, so it will return false. That is the difference between sum and every. And that's what all about this useful array methods. Thank you for listening this.